Hi guys, perhaps it's too early for Fool of the Week, but Bradley Thomas is certainly a candidate. The Tory MP for Bromsgrove, who is a member of Kemi Badenoch's shadow cabinet, delivered a speech recently where he had some, how can I put this, interesting things to say about asylum seekers. He wants them to pay their way, he wants them to give back to society. Well, that sounds reasonable, considering most want to rebuild their lives in Britain and many have skills that are in demand. Well, not quite. Have a listen to his version when he appeared on GB News.
Calling on the government to introduce a migrant repayment scheme. Now, this is similar to the student loan, I believe. Should we have a little listen to how you initially decided to articulate this? So there you go.
Why is it that the government does not explore a scheme whereby if asylum seekers are genuinely deemed to be in fear and allowed to integrate and remain within the UK, that when they become economic contributors and they are active in the workplace, that they should not repay their debt through some similar scheme?
Yeah, so expand on that a bit then. So this is an idea about how asylum seekers can essentially, repay their debt to Britain.
Yeah, so it's a really simple proposition. This was actually put to me 12 months ago by a Conservative councillor, Adam Kent, who's in my constituency. And the proposition is dead simple. It's similar to the student loan system. We know that students, they go to university, they accrue a debt. When they're working, they pay that on a sliding scale that's deducted through their wages. The idea here is that asylum seekers who come to the UK, all of the costs attributed to that, whether it's the cost of the government processing their application, whether it's the cost of them being put up in hotels whilst their claim is being processed, any cost associated with that, if their claim is successful and the government grants them right to stay in the UK, that they get a job and they start repaying their debt that they owe to the UK taxpayer. And there are two reasons behind this. One, it's about fairness to the UK taxpayer who is, in effect, footing the bill. But it's also recognition that if you choose to make the UK your home, you make a contribution. And I thought it was really interesting that on Sunday, on Koonsberg, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves said, those who choose to make the UK their home should pay their taxes. Well, I think, very similarly, we could say those who choose to make the UK their home should make a contribution in recognition of the benevolence of the UK taxpayer.
Is there a risk that this could backfire, though, and they, instead of actually ever looking for work, just decide to spend a lifetime on benefits?
Well, look, I think two things have got to happen. One, the government has to explore every single option to crack down on illegal migration. Government talks about things like smashing the gangs, but they've not got a very good track record of this. We've got to put deterrents in place. People have got mixed views on whether the Rwanda scheme would or would not have worked, but they haven't proposed an alternative. We've got to make sure that we don't increase the number of pull factors, and that's why government has got to focus on processing, so process asylum claims really, really quickly whilst trying to clamp down on the number of boats and asylum seekers that are coming across. And I think it's really critical that whilst these claims are being processed, these asylum seekers are not allowed to work, because that would then increase the likelihood of getting a job as a pull factor on migration.
Oh my goodness. How did these people function? How do they tie their shoelaces? Okay, so what he's doing here is he's comparing asylum seekers with students. And he's saying, I don't want the asylum seekers to work. If somebody is studying, the comparison doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to try and muddle through. Students decide to go to university. They decide, okay, I'm going to do this course. How long does this course last? It lasts 3 years, 5 years, whatever. So they know before going into the course how long it's going to take. Now, students also have the ability to cover some of their costs by working part-time in a bar or a restaurant or something like that. Sometimes they receive support from home. But generally, they know, okay, these are the costs up front before I start university. This is what I'm going to have to pay as a debt. But I can cover some of the costs of living through work. Now, he's against the idea of asylum seekers working. He wants them to have their case processed, and then at the end of that, they're allowed to work. If they have gone through if they're successful and they move on to refugee status, and then they're allowed to work. And then they have to pay it back. So they're automatically at a disadvantage over the student. Now, once again, the student can decide, I don't want to continue at university, but the asylum seeker, in a sense, is stuck in a system that's beyond their control. They can't decide, let's speed up the process. No, it's the Home Office that decides. Now, what is the average waiting time for an asylum seeker? It's about 3 years. Now, I did a quick calculation. The average rent in London is £1,500 a month. So if we were to calculate that out for 3 years, we're talking about over £50,000. That's just for accommodation. He's talking about repaying the taxpayer for everything. For example, if they receive a food allowance of £5 a day, that's about £5,000 over 3 years. This is all adding up. You could end up with a situation where an asylum seeker has to pay back £100,000. Now, is that their fault? No, because the system is broken. Who is responsible for the broken system? The Conservative Party, this guy's party. They took a political decision not to process claims, and it created a massive backlog. So many people are waiting years for their case to be processed. They're not allowed to work, which is strange. Like, this guy's response is, well, we don't want people to work because it would create a pull factor. But at the same time, you want people to do jobs. There are people who want to work, who want to contribute, and you want to punish them instead by denying them their ability to work. And then as soon as they're through a system that they had no control over, you want to lump them with debt of somewhere between £30,000 and £100,000. And we're talking about people who are likely to be on minimum wage. They're not automatically going to be given top jobs. It's also the case when people exit university, but they're in a stronger position to get a higher paying job than maybe somebody who's been an asylum seeker. You're comparing apples and oranges here. You should be more, if you're truly concerned about cost, then you should be asking your friend Dido Harding for some of that money back. What was that? £37 billion disappeared up in smoke. You'd be trying to claw back some money that was given to people during the PPE crisis. A scandal. No, nothing about that. No, let's try and get some cash out of people who are obviously going to start off at the very bottom rung of the ladder. Will start off, in a difficult situation where they're going to face discrimination and serious problems getting access to housing and other things like that. And also notice when the host said, well, maybe there'd be a backlash that these people will just stay on benefits. But we know that asylum seekers are not allowed access to benefits. Most immigrants are not able to access benefits either. So you're starting off from a ridiculous position of comparing asylum seekers to students and claiming that, well, they just game the system if we try and force them to work. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.